All right, let's talk about aging. When we think about getting older, our minds usually jump to one of two big ideas. For the longest time, the only real goal was just, well, a longer life. But lately, the whole conversation is starting to get a lot smarter.
First, you've got lifespan. That's pretty straightforward, right? It's just how many years you're on the planet. But here's the catch. What if those extra years are filled with sickness? Not exactly the dream. And that's what brought us to healthspan, the number of years you live free from disease. Now that's a huge step up, no doubt. Living a long and healthy life. For most of us, that's become the new gold standard.
But what if both of these ideas, even healthspan, are secretly focused on the wrong thing? Think about it. They're both about slowing down decline, about fighting off the inevitable decay. It's like you're playing defense your whole life. So what if we could switch things up and start playing offense instead?
Well, this is where it gets really exciting. There's a brand new concept coming from researchers at Duke University that totally flips the script. It's called Peakspan, and it's a whole new framework for how we should think about aging and our own potential.
So what in the world is Peakspan? Simply put, it's the amount of time you spend living within 90% of your absolute peak functional capacity. See, this isn't just about not being sick. This is about operating at or super close to your very best, your sharpest mind, your strongest body, for as long as humanly possible.
90%. Let that number sink in. This isn't about avoiding the bottom. It's about staying near the top. I mean, just imagine for a second. What would your life actually look like if you could maintain 90% of your best self? Not just for a few years, but for decades.
And this quote just says it all, doesn't it? This is the huge mental shift. We're not talking about managing decline anymore. The new goal is to extend your excellence. It's aspirational, it's proactive, and you know what? The science says it's actually possible. Now, what's so fascinating is that your peak isn't just one moment in time. It's not like you turn 25 and then everything slowly starts to fall apart all at once. Nope. The real story is so much more interesting than that. Different parts of you actually peak at totally different times.
Let's look at this timeline together. Around age 25, that's when a lot of things are at their max. Your physical strength, your immune system, and something called fluid brain power. But check this out. Fast forward to around age 45. That's when your crystallized intelligence and your ability to see patterns actually hit their peak. So your prime isn't just one moment. It's a whole series of peaks spread across your life.
Let's dig into that brain stuff for a second, because this is really cool. Your brain kind of has two different operating systems. On one side, you've got fluid intelligence. Think of this as your brain's raw processing power, its horsepower, how fast you can solve a totally new puzzle you've never seen before. Then on the other side, there's crystallized intelligence. This is your brain's massive internal database, all the knowledge and experience you've built up that you use to solve problems.
And this is where it becomes a total game changer. That crystallized intelligence, your knack for spotting patterns and connecting the dots based on pure experience, it peaks in your mid-40s. So if you're an entrepreneur, a leader, a creator, anyone who solves complex problems for a living, your absolute best, most insightful years might not be behind you. They could still be way ahead of you.
Okay, so this all sounds amazing, right? But the billion-dollar question is, how do we actually do it? How do we extend that period of excellence? Well, it turns out there are very real, very concrete things we can all do. Let's open up the toolkit.
First things first, let's talk about the command center, your brain. We want to keep both that zippy, fluid intelligence and that deep, wise, crystallized intelligence firing on all cylinders.
Okay, there are 3 absolute power-ups here. First, aerobic exercise. This boosts something called BDNF, which is basically like Miracle-Gro for your brain cells. Second, omega-3 fatty acids. You know, the healthy fats that are crucial for brain structure. And third, and this one is so important, you have to engage in novel learning. Learning something new, something that challenges you, like a language or an instrument, it's one of the best ways to keep your brain sharp and flexible. Next up, let's get physical. Your muscles and bones, your whole musculoskeletal system, that stuff peaks around 25 too, but we have some seriously powerful ways to keep it right there near the top. The number one non-negotiable tool in the box here is resistance and strength training. We're talking about focusing on big, compound lifts, things like deadlifts and squats that hit multiple muscle groups at once. They're incredibly efficient at preserving both muscle mass and bone density. And, of course, you gotta fuel the machine with enough protein to actually repair and build that muscle. And we absolutely cannot forget about our immune system.
It's our silent guardian, working around the clock. Keeping it in peak condition is essential for staying at your best overall.
You know, for your immune system, the advice is almost deceptively simple, but it is maybe the most profound of all. You have to prioritize sleep. Seriously, sleep is when your immune system does all of its heavy lifting, all the repair work, all the reinforcement. Making sleep a genuine priority is one of the single most powerful things you can do for your peak span.
So when we put all these pieces together, we're left with a completely different picture of what our prime can be. It's not some fleeting moments in our 20s that we spend the rest of our lives chasing.
This quote really just drives the point home because it shows us what not to do. The absolute fastest way to speed up your decline is to just stop. Stop challenging your body and especially stop challenging your mind. That kind of disengagement is the enemy of a long peak span.
So what's the antidote to that decline? It's actually wonderfully simple: lifelong learning. Constantly pushing yourself to learn new skills, engage with new ideas, and tackle new challenges is the single best prescription for extending your period of excellence. Which brings us to the final, fundamental question. This whole idea of peak span shows us that our best years aren't just left to chance or genetics. We have so much more control than we ever thought. So the real question isn't just about how long you'll live, it's about how long you will choose to be at your peak. What are you going to do with that power?